Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow professionals, welcome to the Green Room. My name's Ruth Francis and it's an absolute honour to guide you through this exciting journey. Today marks a significant milestone as we kickstart our first ever webinar. The Lyreco Webinar series presents the journey of a germ, helping you prepare for the future in collaboration with Reckitt. We have curated a lineup of insightful expert panellists and engaging discussions that will tackle crucial topics shaping the landscape of workplace hygiene. Together, we will navigate through the realms of scientific understanding, industry challenges, compliance with sustainability, the profound impacts on employee health and well-being, and the transformative power of hygiene innovation. The Green Room was born from our deep-rooted desire to share our industry knowledge, expert insights, and innovative outlook on the market. Consider this your backstage pass to behind-the-scenes industry secrets and exclusive insights. Get ready to be part of thought-provoking discussions and unlock the potential to create thriving, sustainable workplaces. The stage is set and the spotlight is on you. So take a seat in the Green Room where learning and collaboration take centre stage. Let's go. I'd like to welcome Dr. Lisa, Richard and Denise to the Green Room to discuss our first topic, the science of germs, where we will explore how germs spread and their impact on our daily lives. Lisa, Richard, Denise, lovely to have you. So we know from research that there are around 10 million bacteria living on the average desk alone and regularly touch surfaces like doorknobs, taps, remotes and phones are some of the most recognised sources of germ spread. But how do germs actually spread through the workplace? Is it through the touch, the air, or both? And what key factors influence their spread and transmission?
Right, well, germs actually come into the building mainly by people, so by us. We bring them in with us and we might look perfectly healthy, but we may have some germs that could cause other people to be ill. So sometimes, you have no symptoms at all, but you're carrying germs. So we have to accept that if we're going to have lots of people in a building, which of course we will, the more people that come in, the more germs that will come in with them. And they spread onto surfaces either through hands or through coughing, sneezing, or simply breathing or shouting or singing. So obviously you can then have droplets or aerosols, and those fall down onto surfaces, or they can be breathed in if they're fine enough. So that's the route of transmission and the sort of journey of the germ, because once those germs are on surfaces, the next person to come along is going to pick them up on their hands and then put them somewhere else, or they could put them into their body. So the way that we can get infected, for example, from respiratory illnesses such as colds and flu and COVID, is through our eyes, through our noses, and breathing in aerosols. So what we need to think about is, if we're sitting at a desk, how clean are my hands? Because often when we're sitting there, we'll be thinking, touching our faces. We know that people touch their faces a lot, especially when they're having a little think or they're watching a video or something like that, or on a Teams chat. And that's when they could put their fingers in their eyes, and that's one of the major routes of transmission. So as well as breathing aerosols.
You've got me worried now, because I'm one of those people that has my pen when I'm thinking,
where's
my goodness, where's it been?
And of course, where have your hands been before you touch your pen?
Exactly, yes.
So it's really important, isn't it, to think about that journey of the germ and those hot spots where people are likely to be picking up the germs.
The transmission of the germ is pretty significant, and within 30 to 40 minutes, a germ has travelled dramatically around the building. By about 60% of the building is covered by one germ in a short period of time.
Wow.
And that's because normal everyday activities that people carry out, you'll take the germ and move it around, and you think about the surfaces that people touch and how it transfers from one particular product to another, and where you think it's safe and it isn't safe, and the processes of it. So I think notifications and polite notices of continuous hygiene is really important around a building, and strategically placed sanitisation stations as well, I think is important as well.
Often when we teach about cross-contamination, we'll actually use the glow gels on the hand plates as they come into the room, and you can't see them when they're applied. So what we do, we put it onto the plate, and then we get the group to come in, and after about 15 minutes we light up the room with black light, and you can see it on people's faces, on the desks, on everything they've touched.
That's such a visual representation then, isn't it, of being able to say, what have I just been doing? And you need to really be aware then.
It's one of the great icebreakers to actually say this is why it's so important.
And I think once people see that, and once you realise that the roots of transmission into your body, that really helps to break that chain of infection. Because if you keep your hands off your face, then you're really, obviously, let's have clean hands in the first place. But you're just naturally going to pick up organisms from different surfaces. Keep your hands out of your face.
Gosh. So what would contribute to the survival and probability of transmission of different types of germs in the workplace?
This all depends on the germ, and it also depends on the type of surfaces. So you've got some great stats, haven't you, Richard?
So the germ, depending on the surface, will last on a metal surface around about 3 hours on average, but on a plastic surface, germ can live up to three days. So if you think about the plastic surfaces around a building in an office block, where the germs will continuously grow and develop. So your photocopies, your microwaves, your kettles, the back of plastic chairs, they are a massive transmission point for germs around the building. So really important when the cleaning methodology is put in place that those areas are taken care of.
3 days is quite a shock to me, I have to say. I didn't know that, so I'm actually learning quite a lot today. It's brilliant. So are there any notable differences in hygiene practices when cleaning bacteria, viruses, fungi or parasites which need to be considered when we're doing our cleaning?
There are, but mainly it's the difference in the product that you use to actually kill the bacteria or the fungi or the spores, because they tend to be different products. When we teach people to clean properly, and people do need training, it's about actually removing those from the surface and making sure that the operative that does that removal is safe in that practice. So even if the bacteria aren't being killed, they're being taken away so that people using those areas are safer.
That makes me feel happier, Denise, to hear that. They can be removed. Gosh, it's quite shocking to hear all of this information. And you think that you're doing so well, because I know I'm very aware of what I'm doing on a day-to-day, but even just talking to you guys as experts, I'm learning so much more. So thank you very much for that. I've heard about targeted hygiene. Can you explain a bit more about what that is?
Well, targeted hygiene is something that we're particularly interested in because it's actually intervening at the right times, at the right moments, on the right surfaces in the right way. So it's rather than just indiscriminately spraying chemicals all over the place, what we're actually doing is saying when is the right time to clean and disinfect, what products are the best for that, which surfaces need to be cleaned and disinfected perhaps more than others, so that we're actually targeting our time and our resources in the places that really will help to break that journey of the germ. And that's really in a nutshell what targeted hygiene is. And it's not just surface hygiene, it's hygiene intervention. So it could be hand washing. So of course a moment for hand washing is when you visit the bathroom. A moment for hand sanitizing is what I call destination hand sanitizing. That's when you arrive at your destination. That's when you need to sanitize your hands or wash your hands. Usually it's easier to sanitize because you're not near a basin. So when you come into the office, you're leaving all those germs behind as soon as you sanitize your hands. You're killing them off your hands. And that's such a gift to the rest of the people you work with, because you're not bringing any germs in with you on your hands from the outside. But there might be other key moments during your work time. So, for example, when you sit at your desk, again, sanitizing your hands before you sit down means that your hands are clean before you get on with your work and before you maybe eat at your desk, which a lot of people do.
I have to say, that is something that really worries me because I see a lot of people doing that. that's a bit of a no-no, really, isn't it? Unless, can you take precautions enough to eat at your desk?
I think you
Justified?
can. I mean, one of the things you need to make sure is that it's amazing if you tip a keyboard upside down, how much, you probably found this, haven't you, when you're cleaning, tip the keyboard up, all this gunk comes out. And it's, of course, you know, if there's debris, food debris, then that's bacteria like to live on, they like food and moisture and everything else. All those lovely, delicious crumbs are a banquet to a bunch of bacteria.
Oh, that's horrible.
Absolutely.
And of course, if you're hot desking, then it's even more critical to consider the next user. So, you know, I like to see disinfecting wipes that people can use by their desk, so that it's a partnership between us all when we share an office space to help keep ourselves clean and hygienic and safe, but also other people.
I think the journey of a person to work and guests into buildings is really important. You think of someone who's come to as guest to your business, they may have come by their own personal car, they may have come by public transport, and all times during that journey they're picking up germs from the products that they've touched, the handlebars, the desks, the chairs, the doors, and they're bringing it into your building. And at some stage, that needs to be addressed very, very quickly. And obviously, the main focal point would be a reception area, where we should be high with sanitisation products to enable them to sanitise their hands, to stop then the spread of their germs throughout the building as well. So it's key important. And at the desk, whether a hot desking or it's your own personal desk, you always have an antibacterial wipe available. Constantly, I do that. I eat my desk like everybody else does, because you work hard and you maximise your time. So yeah, I'm constantly wiping the desk down, basically because I'm a bit of a messy eater. But personally, that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So a clear desk, making a plea for every cleaning operative in the land. A clear desk lets us clean it.
Yeah.
If you've got stuffed toys, plants, gonks, picture frames, there's so much the operative isn't allowed to move. So please, if you're going to have your desk cleaned, clear it so it can be cleaned properly. And
I think that's really important. Yeah, because it's just not fair otherwise, is it? And it's impossible.
Well, people get very upset if you move things on their desk, a pile of papers that is moved. So people won't do it. The operatives won't move them. And therefore, that desk isn't going to be cleaned. But also the number of people, we were talking earlier about the number of people. We're regularly asked, how many metres can I clean? How long will it take to clean this room? Well, how many people use it? How many people will use the washroom? So a washroom that's used twice a day by 2 people is very different to a washroom that's used 20 times in an hour. So please look at your frequencies as well as the sizes. That is really key to getting a good clean.
Yeah. A key thing I'm hearing from this as well is that consideration for everybody else, not just yourself, but you can take care of yourself by doing everything for your area that you're working in and to your own hands. But I think it's that consideration element as well, which is really nice. Do you think people are better at it nowadays after what we've experienced recently?
There was a phase. There was a phase where people actually saw the cleaning operatives and recognised their job. And we even had people cleaning on building sites because they were sanitising the wheels on the different kit in between the users. And they said it was so nice to be recognised as a vital part of the team. Generally speaking, people don't see you once you put on a tabard or a polo shirt. And to keep them more visible would be key in my eyes.
I think in the retail world, I think when we were coming out of lockdown and we were all going back to the high street purchasing products, every retail store had a sanitising station, maybe 2, maybe 3. And I think if you went round a retail store today, you'll probably find them stuck in a corner, maybe congealed and it's gone hard and it's empty.
True, Richard.
And so those practices that we pushed very much so during that period of COVID have diminished somewhat. So maybe things have changed and slipped a little bit.
And I think going forward from that point, it's where you put the sanitizer that will encourage people to use it. So we've been looking quite a lot at where's the best place to put the sanitizing units. And that's really in people's way almost. So not on a wall miles away, they'll just walk past that. So it needs to be, where when you go to a reception desk, absolutely in front of you to encourage people to use it.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Along with the free suite.
But you can have after you've Okay, so that brings part 1 to a close. Thank you very much, everyone. As we move on to our next section, where we begin to discuss industry challenges and the importance of sustainability innovation. We're losing Richard for a little bit, but I would like to welcome Chloe and Stuart to our panel of experts. Hello, Chloe and Stuart, welcome.
Hello.
Now, it's more important than ever to recognise sustainability. Environmental, social and governance reporting is already mandatory for large companies, with requirements expanding, and the hygiene sector is no different. How do businesses maintain high standards of hygiene while also minimising their environmental footprint?
I think a really key part of this is considering the training and education of the people operating the cleaning supplies, products, equipment, because it's more often than not the case that if they're using the product correctly, then it's not only going to be, the most hygienic use of the product, the most effective, but also the most sustainable. So they're not wasting product through over diluting, and so that they're also disposing of the product as responsibly as possible.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's important that product effectiveness, is still the number one driver in the category, right? Everyone, we say 68% of people respond that their number one thing is that products have to be effective. So it has to be sustainable and effective, not sustainable or effective. And I think there've been tremendous advancements in that in terms of the quality and the performance of sustainable products has really elevated over the last 5 years. And those trade-offs in terms of performance versus sustainability, I think, are no longer either or that they used to be.
I think the training as well, you mentioned the training of the operative, that is so key, but also training them about the benefits of using the product properly. So not only I need to dilute it at this and this is the contact time, but also this is a sustainable benefit we get from this product, because that way they will actually educate other people within the building. So if you can sell the sustainability angle to the operative, they will sell it for you and use it properly going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it can be really empowering for the operators of these products as well to understand what a massive impact they can have on hygiene, human health and sustainability through using these products correctly. There's something else that we're seeing more and more in the industry as well, which is sustainability objectives being embedded into procurement strategy, procurement job descriptions, targets and KPIs. And I think that's really, really important as well. So not only the training and education of the operators, but of procurement staff as well, so that they understand how to procure sustainably and how that's sort of crucial to wider company targets and objectives.
Excellent. So how do other factors such as quality and cost present barriers or in fact opportunities for implementing sustainable hygiene practices?
I think this is really about life cycle and looking at true life cycle costs. So often you'll get people that look at the cost of the item. And for me, I can remember going into a boardroom of people because I wanted a bucket that was £18.97 and my finance director wanted one that was £3.20. So I physically took the £3.20 bucket into the meeting and I broke it in front of them. And I'm very happy to say my £18.97 buckets at the end of the 5-year contract were then cleaned and recycled to local charities. Brilliant. So looking at the true cost of something, not the packet cost. And we were talking earlier about looking at the costs in use of a product. So if I buy a 1 litre product that dilutes at 1,000 to 1 and it's £10, that's more effective than buying a 1 litre product that dilutes at 50 to 1 and is only £1. Yeah. So please look at the cost in use, not just the cost of purchasing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties in with sustainability as well, because, if you can get more dilutions out of a product, then that's ultimately less packaging, it's less weight in shipment. So the carbon emissions of that product straight away are being flattened.
Yeah, it's a great point in terms of the carbon in the logistics side of products. I think you cannot understate that as a really important part of the LCA of the products. It's I think almost 40% of most of the cleaning and disinfection products, the carbon footprint will sit in the transport and logistics of them. So any of those things that can be done from a concentrate, compaction standpoint really will deliver in terms of sustainability benefits.
Yeah, I found that fascinating when I started to learn more about hygiene. Is, you know, how so much of, you know, the carbon impacts of hygiene products is because we're all just shipping around tons and tons of water, which we can obviously just get from our own homes and businesses. So yeah, it's fascinating.
And again, it returns to training. So train them to dilute properly, because obviously that 1,000-to-1 dilution needs to be at the right dilution to be effective, to not be harmful. So actually keep the operative safe, but also to do the job you need it to do. So the key part of that, as you said earlier, is train them to use it correctly.
And then I think the other thing for me is the targeted use of products, right? So if we say it's the knowing where and how to use it and where to use it. So what are the right products to be used in the right places, and that can contribute to also the overall sustainable practice of clean disinfection.
As you said earlier, the importance of cleaning before disinfecting. Do we need to disinfect or do we need to clean? And for a lot of people, there's been some confusion about whether they are cleaning or disinfecting, and really to disinfect you need to clean first anyway. So what process are we using first? And do we need to go on to use a second process?
Definitely. I think the last thing I'd say on that question point as well is that, you know, we're moving away from the days where, you know, sustainable products were automatically, you know, more expensive and potentially less effective as well. You know, sustainable products are becoming more efficient and more affordable by the day. And we're seeing massive take-up in businesses of them now.
Okay, so how can businesses leverage the principles of the circular economy, and how can this guide sustainable purchasing decisions and practices?
So I think when we're talking about circularity, a real crucial part of that is in the design phase of product development. Because looking at the design phase allows you to, you know, design out factors in product development that are avoidable and will contribute to the negative impact of a product's environmental footprint. And I think life cycle assessment as well is really complementary and crucial to that process.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, we've made a huge. I think one of the areas where we've made a huge effort and focus is around plastics and looking at not just how much plastic we use, so how do we reduce the amount of plastic, but which plastic. So can we move to more monomaterial plastics? It greatly increases the recyclability of that. And there've been some tremendous innovations in that in terms of things like trigger bottles now, where both the bottle and the heads are completely recyclable.
You used to have to always separate, didn't you?
Correct, yeah. So now there are monomaterial, we have some as Dettol monomaterial triggers and bottles that are single, let's say, stream recyclable, which is important. I think a lot of great innovation about how laminates can move into paper-based materials. So we've seen a number of innovations. We've done some innovations on our finished products around that, about how we switch from plastic-based laminate materials over to paper-based, and obviously the significant sustainability benefits, plastics reductions you get from that. So I think there's a lot of great innovations and work that's happening in this area that really give tangible full life cycle benefits in terms of sustainability.
I think educating the operative as well about what those benefits are, because often people sell to the boardroom and it doesn't come down to the shop floor. If we can sell to the shop floor as well, they can push those benefits up. And it's really key, particularly as you say, the sustainability is now not at the expense of effectiveness, but to explain that, because initially when sustainable products came out, there were some differences in standards, there were differences in what you could achieve. So to change that mindset for the operative to know that what they're using is safer, but also better for the planet, better for them, that level of education is also key.
Then, of course, when they're using the product and they can actually see with their own eyes on a day-to-day basis, because ultimately they've got the best experience, haven't they, the operatives, because they're doing it, they're using the products.
Yeah. And using it and getting the result, they're the best seller for your product.
Yeah, it's a testimonial happening right there, isn't it?
It is.
So, sorry, Chloe, did you want to carry on?
Yeah, I was just going to say with life cycle assessments as well, you know, it breaks up sustainable products into more bite-sized chunks that are kind of easier to manage and easier to communicate as well, which is hugely important for companies now. There's more and more pressure for companies to be, transparent and really well informed and able to communicate about the negative environmental impacts of their products or the positive ones. It allows you to manage those sort of different factors in manufacturing, use, disposal, or if it can be reused or refurbed. It makes that much easier. I mean, it's not an easy process doing a really full life cycle analysis, but there's tons of support out there and resources, and it's the same with circularity as well. And a lot of these resources are free to access too. For example, those from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation website.
And that sounds like there'll be many benefits after having done that analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much new legislation coming in and new pressures to be reporting on and doing these kind of activities. So it's easier and better if you can sort of get ahead of the game before you're pushed to in a panic.
Yeah. So what are the latest advancements in sustainable manufacturing for hygiene products, and how can businesses ensure the adoption of these practices in their supply chains?
I think there's clearly a key trend around concentration and compaction, and the impact that can have on reducing the carbon footprint in logistics. I think that's a real trend that's going right across the industry. I think it's definitely one that businesses can look at and adopt. I could say for us at Reckitt, we're making a big shift towards sourcing renewable energy in all of our manufacturing locations. So I think we're up to 94% now in terms of our total company. That's a very tangible way of really reducing the carbon footprint of product manufacturing. I think that's something also businesses can adopt.
Yeah, excellent. Absolutely. I think as well, collaborating and working with your supply chain is really crucial in this. So engaging with them, finding out, what sustainable practices they've implemented, so that you can then sort of map and understand how that influences your own company and, the scope 3 carbon emissions of your own business, as well as of the people you're selling these products to and the people who are using them.
Brilliant. So what are the potential environmental and human health impacts associated with the production, use and disposal of antimicrobial agents?
Here, the training is so key, because if you get the dilutions wrong on this, you're risking the surfaces you're cleaning, you're risking the health of the people doing the cleaning, you're risking the health of the people coming into the areas. So actually really understanding what dilution rate needs to be used, where those products need to be used, because one size does not fit all. Mm-hmm. And also you don't need it for every surface. Certain areas, when they were including chlorine cleans, were people really going to lick the floors? No.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but cleaning the floors with a product that breaks down the surface of that floor, that is going to cause huge damage to surfaces, was mandatory.
Yeah.
And yet we did it, and you're thinking, why? So actually understanding where, when, how, and dilutions, I think, is really key for this.
I can't agree more. I think that those principles of targeted hygiene, so where and when and do hygiene products and or antimicrobial products need to be used, and where can they have the biggest impact, right? So those key surfaces that really have a high role to play in terms of germ transmission are the ones to really focus on, and things like you said, like floors and some of the other surfaces that have a much lower role to play. I think that's where really people need to think about what is the right product to be used in the right place.
Yeah. And disposal of those products, they're going down into the water system. Are they being disposed of at the right rate? Is it the right dilution? What damage are they doing to the water surface that we're putting them into? All those issues need to be addressed, not just how they're being used, but how are they being disposed of?
Yeah. It seems like it's just a lot of education, information, people understanding how to save cost through all of these different ways to minimise damage. And yeah, I'm learning so much today. It's brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody. We hope you enjoyed that insightful discussion. It's now time for a short break before we dive into our next topic. So take a moment to stretch, grab a drink and recharge for the exciting conversation ahead. In this section, we'll explore the economic implications of workplace illnesses and the link between employee health, well-being and productivity. I'm joined by Chloe, Stuart, Dr. Lisa and Richard to unravel this subject. Welcome back, everybody.
Thanks.
The World Health Organization estimates that improved workplace hygiene practices can lead to a 20% reduction in sick leave. And latest estimates by the Health and Safety Executive show that 619,000 workers each year suffered a new case of ill health, which they believe to be caused or made worse by their work. How can illness outbreaks in the workplace really impact a business's bottom line?
It's an interesting question. When a business has an outbreak within it, the costs aren't just at the cost of the employee being out of work, but the impacts to the business in different areas and sections of their company. For the manufacturing, where they have to take on more staff to replace, who covers and how many hours they cover. I think the cost implication is on an average £500 per person within the business. So business with 100 employees, the actual cost for downtime for a business would be around about £50,000, which is pretty substantial. Yes. And then obviously then you take on board the other implications of bringing in staff to replace, extra time, added time, and it does expand, and it's a huge implication for a business to take on board. So to reduce or negate an outbreak is paramount to companies. It really is.
Yeah, and I think that it's a great point, Richard. And I think there's been some really big studies, scientific studies around this, on some of the macroeconomic impacts of some of this stuff. There's some more in the US. I think influenza costs the US economy about $87 billion. Common cold costs about $40 billion, right? So really, really big numbers. I think it was estimated that last year there was 3.2 million teacher workdays lost last year due to these kind of, let's say, regular illnesses and communicable illnesses from germs that happen and cost businesses, real money.
It is. I think the average is about 4.4 days per employee off ill per year. So, and you just extrapolate that across, it's a huge implication for business to be in control of themselves. So, correct cleaning practices, using the correct methodologies, colour coordination, using the BICS colour coordination is imperative to reduce cross-contamination and spread of germs across a business. Really is important.
So what are some of the other key strategies then that businesses can use to mitigate these risks?
I think one of the things that people can do is actually have an emergency plan. So, for example, if norovirus can spread very, very quickly from a vomiting incident, and so businesses I've worked with who react very quickly can contain it, but you need to have a plan in place. You need to know exactly what you're going to do if someone does vomit in a public place, I mean, sorry, it doesn't sound very nice, but it can happen. And it can very, very rapidly spread around the building. And of course, norovirus is a bit like food poisoning in terms of symptoms, and everyone thinks it's the food they had. But it is actually very often an environmental issue. And it means that you need a cleaning team to know exactly what they're doing, to have separate equipment for that event and a plan. It's like a military operation. So I think being prepared is a really important key message.
Yeah. I've got such a visual now.
Yeah, I think one of the other mitigating ways to mitigate those kind of risks is around hand hygiene and the importance of hand hygiene and how we impact people's behaviours. So how do we nudge people towards making better choices when they go to the bathroom, to wash their hands, and the subsequent impact that can have in terms of the overall hygiene within a workplace and preventing the risk of
Yeah,
infection.
definitely. Particularly making sure that people understand that even if they don't feel unwell, if they don't have symptoms, they could still be carrying viruses such as norovirus.
Yeah.
So that is really important. And I think the other thing businesses can think about is what can they do if someone rings in and says, look, I don't feel very well today, but I'm well enough to work. You know, in the days, you know, now we can work from home, and encouraging that if people don't feel well enough, because you're stopping people from coming in to work with an illness. And that's really a very important point.
And that's a great point, Lisa, because we know from scientific studies that if people are sick, one thing is they're less productive, so they're about a third less productive in the workplace when they're sick. And with respiratory illnesses, they're 5 times more likely to make one of their co-workers sick. So it's the multiplying factor of them being less productive in the workplace and also likely of making their co-workers sick and therefore less productive.
But if we know that people can work from home, which we've obviously seen, it works very, very well, and maybe they're just a little bit under the weather, not commuting to work, not having to go through all of that experience of getting ready, but being able to work from home, I suppose that is a really great solution at that stage, isn't it? If somebody's starting to feel a little bit unwell. So,
and of course, if they're not commuting, they're not infecting other people on the trains and the buses as well.
Yeah, and getting more rest in between.
Yeah, they recover quicker.
Yeah,
It's all very commendable for people to want to go to work and feel the need and necessity to be there because it's their job. But reality is they probably could do more harm than good to the business. And in effect, if they're working in small teams and they go in and they infect their own team, by the time they are better, they go in and their team is depleted because they've now got. So in essence, you know, the good practice may be that companies say, yes, please do work from home because it's the right thing to do. Clear yourself out, get yourself sorted, and then come back. So, yeah.
Yeah, because everybody ends up hating that one person who spread it around the whole team, don't they? And I wouldn't want to be that person.
I think as well, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone sort of came to realise, you know, how many people in our society and in our workplaces are, you know, classed as vulnerable, and it's the employers as well as the employees, you know, responsibility to continue protecting those individuals.
Yeah, and not feeling that pressure, because there used to be such a cultural pressure, didn't there, in business to, I'll just keep soldiering on, even though you're really full of cold or flu or something. It's good now that people don't have to feel that and can work from home and not spread it around. So how does maintaining clean and hygienic workplaces benefit employee health and well-being? It's an obvious question, I know. But
I think, you know, I mean, there's lots of evidence around, you know, for example, with neurodivergent employees, where, I mean, I, for one, I have ADHD, and I find it, you know, almost impossible to concentrate and focus if I'm surrounded by, you know, dirt, clutter, any kind of mess. And I think, again, since the pandemic, we've come to realise how sort of fragile both physical and mental health can be, and how important it is to sort of foster that in workplaces. And there's a sustainable development goal set by the United Nations as well, based around hygiene and sanitation, which recognise sort of the well-being benefits around maintaining clean and hygienic workplaces.
That's really interesting. I think the other thing that I've noticed is that if a workplace is dirty, you're almost subconsciously encouraging people to be messy and dirty because they're in this dirty environment. So by having a clean workplace, then your nudges to help people to reduce risks of infection, such as sanitising their hands or sanitising their work surfaces, are going to be more beneficial. You're going to get further if the workplace is actually kept clean generally, to get people to do the things they need to do to contribute to that overall sense of hygiene.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. For our final discussion, we're saying goodbye to Chloe as we discuss the future of hygiene innovation in the workplace. So traditionally, cleaning and hygiene were very manual operations. However, technological advancements have led to automation, sensor technology, and the use of data becoming key cleaning and facilities management trends. Considering the rapid advancements in hygiene innovation, what disruptive innovations do you anticipate will revolutionise workplace hygiene practices?
So I think there's some really interesting technologies that we're seeing that are coming out in the market. Certainly a lot of innovation around long-lasting disinfection, residual hygiene products, so products that can be applied to surfaces and will give a long-lasting benefit. Now, I would say there have been a number of those, but I think it's fair to say that technology is improving. We're seeing a number now that are able to withstand quite robust, so there's some robust testing methodologies in place now in Europe called PAS 2424. And we're seeing a number of technologies that are able to go through that kind of strenuous test and provide long-lasting protection from germs.
Yeah. I think also from a cleaning equipment perspective, the innovation and growth in battery life, sustainability on that side has dramatically increased the robotics and cobotics world, which are coming into the marketplace and are taking their place, not to replace a professional cleaning operative, but to help and support and help their workload. Cleaning operatives obviously always under pressure to be able to do a job within a time frame, and the introduction of these products will enable them to complete their task and give them a better sense of feeling of their job and their wellness within the business as well. So I think those technologies are an advancement, and they will only get better and better as time goes by. They've come down to the point now where geoteching is important there, where geofencing, should I say, and they are able to put a product into an area, and it can map out automatically what needs the area are and the size of the area, and it can then continue to do its job. So really important.
And I think they're interesting in terms of the opportunity for cleaning staff to really focus on what matters. Right?
Yeah.
So some of those automation opportunities, rather than as an opportunity, they're not there, I don't think, to take away people's jobs. Actually, they're there to help people to really focus on what matters, and I think integrated in that way they can be really meaningful and helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it means that you could have a robot effectively doing the floor, but that means that your cleaning operatives could do some really targeted hygiene at places that would make a difference, which is less impossible really to automate. But I think the other thing is that it's very important that we always think about the role of the individual as well in hygiene, and we don't forget that just because we've got longer lasting protection on a surface, we don't need to wash our hands. It's very easy for people to want to get rid of that bit, but we still need to wash our hands.
And I think also important to me, Lisa, is that these all play a complementary role, right? So that the intent is not that one solution becomes a one size fits all, and that the example I gave on long lasting is not intended that will be the solution that will fix and solve all hygiene solutions. That becomes part of a complementary range, and I think, as we've talked before, is about really selecting the right product for the right job, and that can play a role, but it's not the only one.
I think you're right. Going back to the machines and how they can complement, they can also enhance the cleaning within a building as well, making it better. So if you were considering a school, for instance, that has a gym area, that gym area would need to be swept and possibly cleaned throughout the day before the next set of times it's being used. So the operative will be able to set the machine up, happily press it and let it go on its job, while they then concentrate on the more manual tasks that are needed. So complementing and helping increase the hygiene within the school as well. So very important.
Very good. So are there any future regulations which may influence innovation in hygiene practices and strategies when maintaining a safe and compliant workplace?
I think there are some regulations that are coming around biocides that will have a big impact on the total industry. So there's a big, you could say, set of regulations in Europe around the BPR, so the biocidal products registration, that will be relevant for Europe and the UK. That is certainly going to make overall the biocidal products more regulated, more testing, more data that's sitting behind them. It will create some challenges for some people around innovation because the cost of getting products to market is going to become likely more expensive. But the robustness of those products, I would say, is going to become more reliable.
I think with any collection of any data at all, however it's collected, has to be regulated correctly and not used willy-nilly anywhere. So I think that the regulations may just kind of move on to that area as well. So really important from that point. So under the GDPR as well. So.
Yeah, because there's always going to be a temptation to gather data about people. And that's fine as long as it's anonymous or they've consented to it. But I think we will have to be very, very cautious.
Yeah, good point. So how can organisations leverage data to make hygiene and cleaning regimes more efficient?
So yeah, so the information that's been enabled into dispensers, whether they be soap dispensers or handheld dispensers, the information is now being fed back to a user on a phone or a pad, which will help them identify very quickly where a cleaning situation might be, refilling of a dispenser or a handheld towel dispenser, which will enable efficiency within the business and eradicate shortages within the industry, and that data can then be spread into different positions within the company, how many times they are using the product, and identify fast-moving areas within the company so they can maximise their time efficiently.
Because there's nothing worse, is there, than going to the bathroom and then not being able to wash your hands because there's no soap, or you've got an overflowing waste paper bin, and you know that doesn't give the right impression. It doesn't encourage people to wash their hands. So I think this is going to be really helpful, actually, that type of innovation. Yeah. And of course, there's also innovation such as that counting how many people go into a bathroom and how many people measure that against how much soap's being used. And you can actually get compliance measures in that way. So, you know, say 60% of people just walked out and didn't wash their hands. And by using that data, and it's all anonymous, you can actually encourage people to improve hygiene. And that has happened in office buildings. And that's really exciting to sort of get everybody all excited about how can we make this better? How can we improve our hygiene score? And you can have competitions between the different floors. Believe me, it can happen. That's so funny.
I think it's been there or thereabouts for many years, but pushing it forward and making it a part of the day-to-day has been the issue, and companies buying into it. And there's always the element of cost behind this. And I think when it comes down to an employee well-being and the health of the staff, I think sometimes companies have to think a little bit wider and higher about that. And cost is important, but well-being of the staff and having staff on site is far more important than not having them on site. So I think that cost element needs to be just taken into consideration by businesses as maybe a benefit more than a negative to them.
Well, you've just touched upon it briefly a moment ago, but in the context of hygiene innovation, what ethical considerations should organisations and researchers bear in mind to protect employee privacy, autonomy and dignity, do you think?
Yeah, I think, again, with reference when they are monitoring and taking the data, it's how they use the data and what data they're using, which is important. Yes, gathering the data is paramount to making the whole cleaning and hygiene world more efficient, effective, but what data they use is paramount. Should it be conducted that it's put down to gents or ladies, particular areas within a business, areas not in a business, which areas are being cleaned more because they need to be. So that information has to be taken very carefully and used considerately, I think is the word.
Yeah, I think absolutely, in terms of how sensitive the data is. I think, whenever you're talking about personal data, obviously it's very, very important that businesses are GDPR compliant.
Yes.
For me, the other part that comes into it is the connection with Geofencing is really interesting.
Yes.
But obviously there's a lot of then sensitive data about the layouts of buildings, the security of buildings. So links with that need to ensure that that data is, I'd say, properly managed or securely managed.
I think so.
But that shouldn't deter people from wanting to embrace some of these innovations that really can make businesses more efficient.
I agree, so absolutely. Yeah, it's important.
Now, as part of your registration package, we invited you to submit any questions to our panel. So we'll quickly work our way through some of those. But before we get started, please welcome back Denise and Chloe. Welcome back, thank you. Okay, so first question then. Battery technology in cleaning sounds interesting. Do you think it's worth investing in battery power cleaning equipment? And are there any pros and cons we should know about?
I think there's both pros and cons. So one of the pros can be for busy areas. So your retail carpets at the front of store means you've got no cables, you've got battery power, you've got less of a slip trip. Great for cleaning stairways and difficult to reach areas. But generally, with the battery equipment, the life of the battery doesn't quite match what the supplier will tell you how long it lives for. So maybe they'll say it charges for an hour or runs for an hour, but probably half of that is at full power. So it can have a decrease in productivity as you move with it.
Okay. I have a vacuum cleaner that's like that. It just doesn't quite cut it.
I think as well, ultimately, the entire device doesn't have the same longevity as others. So it's the consideration as well as, you know, how sustainable is the product if it needs to be disposed of more regularly. How can you dispose of it responsibly, and does the provider, the person who supplied the product to you, have some sort of service in place where they can, you know, support you to dispose of that sustainably and as responsibly as possible. So I think that's a huge consideration for these new devices as well.
Does that exist? Does that service exist at the moment?
It does. It does. There are lots of suppliers who offer these sorts of services. I think it's on those suppliers and the sellers to effectively communicate that to their customers as well. Make sure that it's really clear on the packaging, etc., how it should be disposed of, so that the customer is as informed as possible.
Sorry, Stuart. I think I cut you.
No, I was going to say, I think Denise made a great point earlier about understanding the total life cycle of what you're buying and therefore the value, right? How long it's going to last. And I think that's particularly pertinent on battery operated equipment or purchases from our standpoint.
I think also understanding the type of batteries you're using. So are they a trickle charge, or do you need to run them down and then recharge them? And again, that's key, training the people to understand that so that you get that full life cycle, which otherwise you won't.
And can you have extra batteries so that you can have them on charge so that they can replace the unit that you're using? You know, that's very simple, but it's very handy if you've got that. Or machines that use the same battery, different machines that use the same battery pack.
A number of suppliers have gone that way. So one battery may fuel 5 of their different machines, and you could have the 4 batteries on charge, depending which machine you were using.
Very good. Okay, next question. I'm an HR manager and work for a construction company. How can we communicate with our subcontractors, suppliers and workers to ensure consistent hygiene practices are followed across all sites?
I think this is key for the induction, because all sites for construction will have a strong induction process. So use your induction process to actually get those points across, your hygiene, what's expected and what they should be doing, right from them starting on that site.
I think it's also important to have signage as well that's in the right language for the environment. So, for example, when we had signs at the Commonwealth Games, we had something that was designed very specially with that in mind, you know, sort of everyone's a winner if they wash their hands, those sorts of messages. And I think you can be quite clever and innovative with signage specifically for different workspaces so that it actually means something to people who are reading it.
Yeah, it gets their attention, doesn't it? And then that does its job well.
I think pictograms on the signage as well is pretty straightforward and simple as well, to overcome the language barrier as well, to make sure that everyone can follow straightforward and simple.
Yes.
And as we are, you know, a country that has lots of influence from around the world, I think it's really important that is carried out. A lot of the chemical products that are used in the UK have pictograms on it to make it simplistic and easy to use. So I think to bolster and to back up what's already been said, I think that would be really, really handy.
That reminds me of that amazing fact I think you shared with me earlier, Denise, about how, was it 1 in 4 cleaning operators aren't confident readers? So having those pictorial instructions
Pictorials are key.
super important, with anything hygiene related.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. Question number 3, we've got here, what are your thoughts on using robotics and automation in cleaning operations, and can they enhance efficiency without compromising job opportunities? We've kind of touched a little bit on this, but anybody else want to elaborate on that?
I think for me, it's actually the different job opportunities they can bring.
Right.
Because with the computers, with the robots, they need to be programmed, they need to be planned, they need to be tasked and mapped for the areas. And that's not usually the cleaning operator that's going to do that. So the operator still needs to fill them, clean them, empty them, make sure they're charged. But somebody actually needs to put them in place and make sure they do the job they want to. So there's a range of new jobs that are coming into the industry that may attract a wider workforce than the one we're currently attracting.
That's good to hear, yeah. Okay, can you provide examples of alternative hygiene products made from natural ingredients that have been proven to still be effective?
Yeah, and I think this is a common misnomer from my standpoint, that there's certainly been big advances in natural-based disinfecting products. We have a number of them based on lactic acid, citric acid, natural derived active systems that pass all of the EN standards, your 1276, your 14697, that would be expected of hygiene products. So I think, provided, obviously when you're buying products, check the back label, check what they have been tested on, but there is a number of natural-based actives that can really do the job, and that businesses should be able to trust.
Yeah, and there is the proof there by the sounds of it from the testing.
Biotechnologies has been around for a while. Natural ingredients, organic ingredients used in the products. And I think a lot of credence needs to be given to that, because they are products that do work and are effective. And I think that is really important to take forward for not only for us, but for our plants as well. So obviously the less or more of those products are used, the less impact it has on the environment overall, and what goes back into our waterways and our streams. So it is really important that the growth and technology within that marketplace continues at pace as well.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what Stuart and Richard have just said, and that we touched on earlier as well, is that those kind of barriers around both costs and quality relating to more eco-friendly cleaning products really are reducing rapidly as technology progresses, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that is good to hear. Good to know. Okay, this is another question here saying that we've adopted a hot desk style in our offices. What can we do to prevent germ spread in open plan offices where employees often share desks?
I think it's actually providing the tools for people to help themselves. So giving them the opportunity to use wipes, disinfectant wipes, having sanitizer nearby, so that it's easy to grab. And then build in with that some notices, which could be pictograms, or it could just be, help yourself to our free hygiene products, get your desk germ-free, or whatever you want to put on there. And just encouraging that culture of people helping themselves to hygiene, as well as also, obviously, the cleaning operatives are going to make it clean at the beginning of the day, but realising that there is a bit of responsibility and shared responsibility.
Yeah, and it's not offending anybody, is it? I think that was the old-fashioned way of thinking. Like somebody might think, "Oh, why are you wiping down where I've just been sitting?" But it is a bit more. I think nowadays it's a bit more of an awareness that it's required to give ourselves a clean work environment.
I think also keeping those areas clear, so that when the cleaning operative can clean them, they can clean them fully. So true hot desking, there shouldn't be anything left on the desk.
No, of course.
And yet you'll still get people that try and adopt those spaces. And we were saying earlier, framed pictures, stuffed toys, gonks. As a cleaning operative, we really love.
Yes, I can imagine that being quite tricky.
I think the last thing I'd say is, I think with hot desking setup is people are less familiar with where exactly they're going to be sitting. So I think it makes that signage, it makes those instructions about, okay, where should people go to wash their hands? Is there a hand sanitizer available? A little bit more important, because maybe it's not where they sit every day, and they're less familiar.
Yeah, maybe introducing protocols to it. If you're using the hot test area, please be polite, courteous, and this is what you'd expect. Leave it as you found it. Those type nice, polite, which I think as time goes on, we're all getting used to those signages, but it is important.
It's so funny, isn't it? You'd say that there's some areas where some of those common courtesies have come. If you take a gym, for example, it's now, I would say, almost expected that if you're using a piece of equipment, you would take that personal responsibility and make sure it's hygienic for the next person. And I think there's an evolution there to go regarding habits in offices.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, well, I think that is about all we've got time for. Thank you so much to our wonderful panel. On behalf of Lyreco and our partners at Reckitt, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your presence and engagement. Thank you for being a part of the Green Room's inaugural webinar, The Journey of a Germ. Throughout our time together, we've geeked out over the science of germs, tackled industry challenges in embracing sustainability, unravelled the secrets behind employee health and productivity, and even peeked into the crystal ball to see the future of hygiene innovation in the workplace. I hope these discussions have sparked some serious light bulb moments. A big shout out to our expert panellists who've shared their wisdom and insights with us. Thank you all very much. I encourage you to carry the knowledge and inspiration gained today into your organisations. Together, we can create workplaces where cleanliness, health and sustainability go hand in hand. We look forward to welcoming you back for future webinars where we will continue to explore new frontiers and empower professionals like you. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, everybody.